So if you've been watching my videos recently, you'll know that I'm getting super excited about Fastgen as a complementary service to my FlutterFlow projects. In this particular video, what we're going to look at, we're going to use Fastgen to make a call out to ChatGPT. We're going to get a response back. We're then going to do some further manipulation on that particular response, and then we're going to send it back to our FlutterFlow application. And to allow us to do that, we're going to use a new feature within Fastgen that's just dropped recently, which is an actual code block. That's going to allow us to actually programmatically sort of make some decisions based on the content that comes back from ChatGPT before we send it back to our FlutterFlow application. I've got a sample application as a link in the description if you would like to follow along in this particular video, but I'm sure you'll find it really, really interesting. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So let's have a look then of the FlutterFlow application that we're going to put together using Fastgen as well. So on the screen at the moment, you can see here I've got a text box here that's waiting for some content. At the top here, I've got some drop down lists here. I've got one that says bullet points, content improvement, or social media hashtags. So what it's waiting for me to do now is it's waiting for me to actually put some content in. So here I've got some in my clipboard, some content about FlutterFlow here, and I'm just going to ask it to do some content improvement on that. So I'm going to hit generate content, and of course that's now going to call out to Fastgen. Fastgen is then going to call out to ChatGPT. We'll get a response back from ChatGPT, and then of course we'll then send it back to our FlutterFlow application. You can see here that it's just kind of reworked some of that content to make it look a little bit more interesting. So what we can also do is we can go here and we can actually say, well, actually I'll have that as a set of bullet points. So hit the generate option again, and you can see here that we'll then get those bullet points get listed and come back. So that's all looking really good. What we can then also do is we can hit the drop down here, say social media hashtags, hit generate content. And in just a moment, we'll see a list of hashtags. And what you'll also notice there with those hashtags is that they are all in alphabetical order. So what we've done is we've used the power of Fastgen and used their code action block here to manipulate the result that's come back from ChatGPT. We've actually then sorted them into an alphabetical order, and we're returning it back to the FlutterFlow application. So what it means here is that we can actually reduce the complexity of our FlutterFlow application, and we can put all of the power within inside the Fastgen platform. So let's now walk through and I'll show you how to create all of this step by step. So to actually follow along in this particular tutorial using your own Fastgen account, one thing you're going to need to make sure you do, you're going to need to have an API key here for the ChatGPT platform. So of course, head over to platform.openai.com, grab yourself an API key. You might need to put some credit in the system as well, but it's really, really low cost. It will literally call you pence and cents. So please do that. Grab yourself an API key, and then I'll show you where you need to load that into Fastgen. So here I am on Fastgen's website here. I've logged into my account. If you haven't got yourself an account yet, please do check the link in the description, of course, because that will give you a 30% discount should you decide to use a platform in the future when you really do want to ramp up your production application. But here I am on the dashboard. I'm ready to go. The first thing that I'm going to need to do is add in my platform API key that I've just copied into the clipboard. So of course, the way you do that is you just move over to your little avatar icon there, go to preferences, and then just down the bottom you've got all these integrations here, and of course there'll be more coming in the future, but here we've got one called ChatGPT. Just select that, and of course here I've already got my ChatGPT API key already added, but you'll be able to have there'll be a text box here. You just paste yours in and then hit the connect, and then hopefully everything should be up and running with it saying enable. So then you're now ready to use that action block with inside your Fastgen application. So let's now move on to now creating the actual API that our FlutterFlow application is going to call out to into Fastgen. Let's go and build that now. So actually then, just before we do look at the API, let's have a little think about exactly what this application is actually doing behind the scenes. Now, this application is available for you to download and to follow along as well, so please do go and check that out. But basically what's going to happen here is that we've got this drop down list here that's just at the top here. You can see here I've got a number of option values. These are the values that's going to be sent over to the Fastgen API call. It's just simply 1, 2, or 3. And what that is representing is it's representing 1 for bullet points, 2 for content improvement, and 3 for social media hashtags. And the reason why that's quite important is because that value of 1, 2, or 3, we need to make some decisions on that with actually inside our logic within the Fastgen platform. So for now, that's as simple as it comes when it comes to the actual drop-down list. So once that's been selected, when you hit the generate content here, if we go up to the actions, you can see the first thing that we're doing is we're validating the form just to make sure that drop-down list has actually been, or an item has been selected there. And then we're making a backend API call into our Fastgen project. Of course, we're going to get the result back. And when we get the result back, we're then just going to update a page state variable, which is going to contain the content that actually comes back from our Fastgen API call. Of course, if there's an error, then we're just going to simply show a snack bar there. So that is as easy as this application comes. Just down in this little bit here, we've got a markdown widget here that I'm actually using to kind of more like format the actual output here from the actual ChatGPT response. Of course, have a look at that. That's just a custom piece of code that's just sitting over in the custom code section, and that is just a custom widget that just allows us to format it a little bit more nicer. So without further ado, let's now move back over to Fastgen and let's start building out the actual API. Okay, so back within Fastgen, I'm on the APIs screen here. Choose add route up to the top right here. Choose create because we're going to be doing a post request within inside Fastgen. Okay, so we're going to keep things really simple for now. What we're going to do is we're going to do a very, very basic implementation of our call to ChatGPT and to get a response back to our FlutterFlow application. And I'll explain why that's quite important in a moment. But for now, let's just keep it really, really simple. Let's just choose the API route there. Let's give our route an actual name here. So I'm going to call this one ChatGPT functions, and I'm going to just change the URL here, ChatGPT functions, just like that. Keep it pretty simple. Where it says authentication, let's make this a public route. We're not really worried about any authentication at this particular stage. Keep it completely open. Hit the save option, and that's give us our first entry point for our API call. So next up, let's add our ChatGPT action onto the canvas here. Just move here and drop it just there. Let's just select the option here. Let's give our action a name. So I'm going to call this one Content Improver here. We can choose the model that we're interested in, 3.5 or 4, but of course I'm using a 3.5 API key, but of course if you've got a 4, then you can actually pop that in there as well. So I'm going to choose a 3.5 here. Now the prompt, this is the kind of the message that we're going to send to ChatGPT. So what we're going to do is we're just going to give this a very, very simple piece of content here. Okay, so I'm going to start the sentence to ChatGPT of make the following sound better. I'm just going to put a colon in here. I'm going to choose the little option here for insert a variable. Just choose that. And I'm going to choose inputs.body. Okay, so this is the, when we actually set this up in FlutterFlow, we're going to be passing in some content, and that'll be part of the body of the message that actually comes via the API actually into this particular point. So where it says .body, I'm just going to change this now, and I'm going to say content, just like that. So we're going to create this in FlutterFlow very shortly, but it's called inputs.body.content, and that's all that we need to do. Just hit the little save option here, and then I'm going to then return this back. So just on the response here, let's just grab a success in. Let's just drop that here. I'm going to call this return success. Okay, so just pasted in a very simple structure now. If you see my previous video, I was explaining about trying to keep this structure very consistent with all of your responses back from Fastgen. But as you can see here, we don't need to send any sort of messages back. We're going to say an OK here because at this particular point, we just assume everything is absolutely fine. But it's this result one. This is the bit that's going to be really important to us. So we now need to return back the result of the ChatGPT response that's come back. Okay, so we just insert the variable just there. We're going to just scroll down to this list, and this is the step, the content improver. As you can see, this name here, content-improver, matches the name here of the actual action block that we give it. So just make sure you got that selected. Choose outputs. Okay, so now we've got that in there. Now this is the bit that you just need to make sure you put in. So we've got the actual output there from ChatGPT, but what we need to do is we need to reference the content. This is just a slightly one level deeper than actually into the responses come back from ChatGPT. So I'm just going to put content in there like that and hit the save, and that should be good for us. So what we can now do is we can now hook this up to FlutterFlow to actually make this API call, and then we'll be able to run it, and we'll be able to then debug it here, and then we'll see exactly what we've got. And of course, we'll then come back to this and sort of build this out a little bit more. Okay, so with our project loaded in FlutterFlow, let's move over to the APIs option here on the left-hand side. The first thing that we need to do is add a group. So choose Create API Group, and here I'm just going to give my API group a name. So I'm going to say Fastgen, and with inside the API URL, this is where we need to now pop back to Fastgen to grab that from our from the top of the screen here. Just this is the top here. Just hit the copy there, move back into FlutterFlow. Let's just paste the base URL. Let's remove this here. In fact, let's just move this to the clipboard here. Just copy that, and let's just delete that here. So we now have our group. Just hit add group. And then just with inside here, drop the little twister down, hit the add API call here, and we're just going to call this one, we'll just call this one content improver here. And then just in here, just paste the name of our API endpoint that we've now copied to the clipboard. That is good. We need to change this from a get to a post request to match up our API that we created just a moment ago. And of course, now we need to create some variables now. So let's hit the variables option, hit add variable. So the first one that we're going to add in is called action, and it's going to be of type string. Hit the add variable again, and this one's going to be the content, and of course this is the content that we're going to pass in as well. So just choose the string option. That is good. Let's move over to the actual body itself, choose the body option and say JSON. So quite simply, all that we need to do now is just inside here. What we're going to do is we are going to create an action. So just double quote action colon, and then we're going to then just drag the action in just there, like that, put a little comma, and then now we're going to pass in the actual content itself. Whoops, and then just do that. And of course, we're now going to pass in the content and just drag that in there. That should be all that we need to do. Just hit the add call. So that's our API call now set up to call into Fastgen itself. Now we need to move back over to the application here, and let's just make sure all this is all hooked up. So move back over to the widget tree, and of course just with inside the generate content button here, of course if you've cloned the project, just choose that. Move over to the actions now. As I had showed you before, I've got some actions already set up. Choose the backend API call option, choose the group name, say group Fastgen, and of course we've got the content improver API. That's the only one that's available to us, but it's now selected, and we now need to pass in some variables itself. So choose the set additional variable, and then the first one that we're going to choose is the actual action itself. Choose the value, and we're going to go to the actual widget state here, because this is the actual drop down itself. So we're just going to choose the action drop down here, and we're going to set another one. We're just going to move to the variable name. We say it's the actual content itself, and of course, and this is where we're now need to pick up the actual content from the text box itself, the actual text field. So just choose the widget state option again and choose the content text field. So that's everything all nicely set up for us. Just hit close, and you should see your little green tick there, which means that we are good to go. So what we can now do is we're going to quickly flip over to Fastgen. Let's actually deploy the API. So once we've actually created this, obviously we're in a more like development mode here, but we actually now need to make this available in a production way, ready for us to call out from our application. So just move down here, hit the deploy option, hit deploy to live, and then that you should get a little notification there to say that it's all available. So we can now move back over to FlutterFlow. Let's fire up the application and let's give this a whirl. Okay, so I fired the application up into test mode. I've put some content in here, and I've chose content improvement, although that won't have no effect. Hit the generate content, and we seem to have a null. We seem to have a problem. So I wonder what's going on there. We need to actually have a look. So let's move over to Fastgen. Let's see what's actually happening there first to see if we're getting the output that we expect with inside our Fastgen. So let's just move over to Fastgen itself. Let's move down to logs. And you should see here the last API call that was made. Here it is. We've got this ChatGPT functions here. And on the right hand side, this is the body. This is what we're actually passing from FlutterFlow itself. We're passing the action of number 2, and then we're passing this content in. So that all looks pretty good. This is the response. This is what's actually coming back to FlutterFlow. And we can see here that we've got no message, we've got no status. That's good. And we have the result. So it looks like the content improvement has actually worked okay. So this is looking pretty good. So as far as I'm concerned, Fastgen is doing exactly what we need it to do. Let's go back over to FlutterFlow and actually have a look here. Now let's have a look. So let's have a look onto the generate content option. Let's open that up here. So we know that we've got the API call successful. We're moving down here, we've got the result. We know that we're going down in this particular position. I'm assuming because we never had no snack bar that was shown. So let's actually have a look at the update widget state. Let's have a look here, content value set to, there we go. There's the problem. So what it is that we're actually setting the value to be $.result. So that is the API response. But then we're assuming there's going to be a content. There's going to be something deeper down with inside the response that comes back. Now we know that we haven't got that. So if I just now move back over to Fastgen, you'll see here that we just got result, and then everything was inside there. We haven't got anything that says a content here with then the content. So all that we need to do is go back to FlutterFlow. Let's just change this value here. So let's just move the word content off and just say result and hit confirm. Let's close that down. Let's go back into test mode. Let's do a reload. Okay, just reloaded. Let's just choose the content improvement. Let's just paste that in here. Choose generate content. There we go. Excellent. So there is our content coming back. So everything is looking really, really good. We've just solved that particular problem. Let's move back over to Fastgen. Let me just show you another way that you can actually check things out. If we move over here where it says view in view in the builder, I've got FlutterFlow on the brain there. I said UI builder, say view in builder. And of course, what we can see here, we can actually just click on the last one there. You can see now, if I just choose that, this is the last one that we actually had, and you can see everything is all green. And you can see here that we can just click on these, we can look at this, we can see that this is what actually come in, and of course we can click on here, return success, and of course this is what we've got coming back. So everything is looking good, but where it shows it's green, it shows that it's every single step has been executed, and we're getting the desired output here. So that's perfect. So we're in a good shape now. Let's now move on and let's start improving this API to handle some of these additional actions. So here we are, they're back with inside Fastgen with the ChatGPT functions API that we've created. So this is the power of Fastgen now. Now in recent times, they've introduced a new action which opens up a whole new world of opportunity for more customizing the platform to kind of manipulate data and work in a number of different ways. And it's called the custom code action block. Okay, now obviously it's ideally suited for coders or people who want to do a little bit of low code development with inside the platform. Of course, you can be super complex about your coding, or you can keep things really, really simple. In this particular video, we're trying to keep things pretty simple. But hopefully you'll get to a good feeling of the power of the way you can use custom code with inside these APIs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this custom code block over, and I'm just going to drag it right here. So if you recall, we're passing in this action. It's a 1, a 2, or a 3. Now we need to make a decision. If it's a 1, then we need to do a type of kind of content improvement, or we've got to do the bullet points, or we've got to do the hashtags. So what we can do is we can actually now make a decision, and we can actually then return that decision back into the ChatGPT action for it to then build out the prompt that it's going to send to ChatGPT. So the way that we do that is with this custom block selected, just choose that. Let's give it a name. So we're just going to call this return action like that. Going to keep everything here as it is. We just don't need to change it, and then click on the configure code option here. Okay, so if you're a developer, you're going to be right at home with this particular screen. It's going to look really, really familiar to you in terms of a code editor. But what's really great about this is that on the right-hand side, this is where we can do our coding. On the left-hand side here, you can see that we've got some context data. This is some samples of the data that we've got from a previous run. And what you can see here is this is the actual data that we've actually got coming in from FlutterFlow. You can see here, this is the action that we had selected. And then here is the content that we passed in. Now, of course, now what we can do is we can actually reference this on the left hand side, on the right hand side, which is fantastic. So what we're going to do is we are now going to make a decision. We're going to say, is the action that was passed in a 1, a 2, or a 3? Now, of course, if it's a 1, we're going to do some bullet points. If it's a 2, then we're actually going to improve the content. Or if it's 3, we're going to actually do the hashtags. And what we can do is we can then customize the output from this step and this step only, and we can then read that in another step, such as the ChatGPT request that we're going to make, and we're actually going to pass that action actually into that ChatGPT response. So let me walk you through a little bit of basic coding here, and hopefully you should see what exactly I mean. So first up, I'm going to create a brand new variable called action to take, okay, and just going to keep it like that. And then we're now going to make a decision, okay. So I'm going to do an if. So I'm going to say context. So this is the context that you can see on the left hand side here. I'm going to grab hold of the body. So we're going to say $body. So that's going to reference this body just here. Okay. And you can see here, we want to pick up the actual action. So I'm just going to say dot action. Okay. And then I'm going to say equals. So it's a double equals there. And we're going to say 1. Okay, so if it's a 1, I'm just going to put some curly braces here. We are going to want to say action to take equals, and this is what we're going to put in, bullet point the following with a semicolon at the end. That's good. Else if, okay, and we're going to say context dot and then $sign again, body dot action is equal to number 2. We then do another curly brace there, and we're going to say action to take equals make the following sound better with then a semicolon. Oh, don't mean to do that. And then I can say else if, and then I can say context dot body dot action is equal to, you guessed it, 3. I'm going to do a curly bracket there. I'm going to say action to take equals social media hashtags, and then just do a semicolon at the end. So there we go. So we'll make a decision. If it's 1, if it's 2, if it's 3, then we're going to create a custom action, that just a string value really, that we're now going to make available. And all that I need to do is this return here is going to be the return from the step. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this and say, instead of hey hello, I'm going to say result, keep it consistent. And here I'm going to delete this out. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in the output to that variable. So there we go. So what just need to take that off. So there we go. Really, really basic programming there, just to make some conditional checks there on our action. And that will now be good. Now what we can do is we can actually test this out. So you can see here that we were passing in 2 here. If I just say test code now, you can see now the result that's coming back is going to say make the following sound better, because it's picked up this is a 2, and of course it's making the sound better. Now if I go to it and change this to 1 and say test code, we'll say bullet point the following, and just for good measure, let's just do 3 and say test code. There we go, social media hashtag. So this is going to be now available to us. So we can now move on to the next step, where we can now configure ChatGPT to pick up this result and use this at the beginning of the prompt. So just hit save changes. And now we're back to our workflows. So let's now focus on changing the content improver now. So let's clear out everything that we got in here at the moment. We're not too worried about that. We can rework that. So now let's pick up the actual output from the return action. So just with inside the insert variable, let's just scroll down here, and we've got this return actions output. Now everything that comes out from the output will be in data. So you need to make sure that you put data there. And of course, if you remember, we called it result on the previous step there, and then we're going to put a colon here, so that's now going to put the action prompt in there. And now of course we can just go back to the insert variable inputs body, and if you remember, it was just called content like that. So that's good. So we've got the action there and the content, and we just hit save. Okay, let's just hit the deploy here. Let's get that done. Hit deploy to live. And now we'll be in a good position now to move back over to FlutterFlow now, and let's just try this out and see if we actually get the 3 actions taking place. Okay, so back in test mode, let's choose content improvement first. Let's just paste our content in there, hit generate content. Okay, that's looking good. We've got some content coming back now. Let's try and see if we get some bullet points. Hit generate. Brilliant, there we go. We've got some bullet points coming back. Let's just try the hashtags here as well. Hit generate content. Excellent, things are looking really, really good. If we pop back over to Fastgen, of course, we can go and just refresh the actual calls out to the API. Let's just choose the first one here. Let's just view in the UI builder, and we should see all of our steps looking pretty healthy, I hope. There we go. And we can look at the return action. Let's just have a look here. We can see that we got the social media as the last one that we actually had. And of course, that plays right the way down into the success there. And we can see that we got all of our kind of our hashtags coming out there. So there we go. So things looking great for us now. We've got this perfectly in place. Now, there is something that we want to do. And we want to just kind of extend this a little bit with inside this particular video. If we go back over to test mode here, you can see here that these hashtags here are all kind of not in a like an alphabetical order. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's now modify the Fastgen output. Let's create some more code here. Let's now get these sorted into an order, so then they come back into FlutterFlow in alphabetical order. Let's go and do that now. Okay, so back into our ChatGPT API, let's now build this out. So let's now put an if condition in just between this one just here. Okay, we need to check to make sure that we get a response back from ChatGPT, just so we can know that we can go in a more positive direction if we do, or of course we can return back to FlutterFlow if we're handling it there, of course, if there is a more negative response back. So we just need to change this here, and we're just going to say ChatGPT response. ChatGPT response question mark here. Let's now put this check in here. So let's just choose this. Let's move down here to the content improver outputs. This is the ChatGPT one here. And we're just going to basically say is not equal to null. Just hit save there. And just moving down in here into true or false. Now, of course, if we do get a response, we're going to be in this direction here, but let's just handle the failed response here. Let's just move the error from the right-hand side over into this drop area here. Let's just choose this and choose this as just return error. So we go, so I've just put in there a standard response back with a message, no results, of course, and then just a status of error. I think that is good. Just hit save. Now on the left hand side, what we're going to do is we're now going to put an if condition in. Okay, so we're only going to want to do this kind of this customized response of the of all of the hashtags in an alphabetical list if the third action is being selected. So if the action is equal to 3, we're going to move into a direction where we're going to put some code in there to do that. But of course, anything else, we're just going to return back the standard response. So let's just do the standard response first. So let's just move a success over here. So we'll just choose this, and we're just going to say return, oh, keep doing that, return success here. Let's just, there we go. So just pasted that in there, of course. And with the outputs now, everything that comes back from ChatGPT will have a content on. So just put .content, and that should be good. And then just hit the save option. There it is. Now down in this particular direction now, we now need to make this decision. So up the top here, let's now change this if condition. So we're just going to say social tags question mark. And then on the condition here, we're just going to choose this. And if you remember, it comes in on the body and it's called action like that. And we're just going to say is equal to, and then a double quotes 3. So we'll just check to see if it's 3, hit save. And of course, if it's anything but 3, it's going to move down here and just return back that standard response. But if we go down here, then this is where we're now going to add in this fresh new code block now to now manipulate the response that's going to come back. So let's just move the custom code option over here. Let's just bring that just in here. And we're just going to change the name of this now. Sorted hashtags, there we go, and click on configure code. Okay, I've just pasted some code in here to spare you your time in watching me type very, very slowly. So you can see here, I've just put some comments in here to describe exactly what it's doing here. So the first thing you're doing, we're creating a variable here called hashtag string. This is just picking up the actual hashtag that's everything that's coming in from a content improver. So this is the content improver up here. And then we are then grabbing hold of the content, which is everything within inside here, of course. And then what we're doing is we're then creating a series of, well, just one array actually of each and every one of the actual hashtags that we've actually got. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. And of course, we've just got we're just splitting it by the space. So every time there is a space, of course, then it's going to be a separate entry actually in our actual array. So just one thing to point out here, I think this is really quite important here, is that because we've got a dash that's actually within inside the name of our step here, you have to make sure you put a square bracket and then double quotes here, of course. But if that was just just a string on it, just a name of just say content, for example, or just improver, depending what you called your step, then you wouldn't need to include this. Okay, so you could just say .improver .content. Okay, so just bear that one in mind, that you do need to put these square brackets on if you've got anything other than a string sort of representation of the name there. So everything else, so we've got these we've got this array of hashtags here, and of course we're now going to do this little sort here on the actual array itself. So this is really just quite simply now just sorting them into alphabetical order for us. Okay, and then we're returning, so within inside the hashtags array will be our list of sorted sort of hashtags, and then what we're doing is we're just creating a brand new string for us to return back. Okay, and we're just kind of joining on the spaces, of course. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to bring back a list of all of the hashtags here, and we're just going to put a space back in just as we've got here. Okay, so that's what we're doing with this join against each of the items in the array. And of course what we're doing is we're going to return back a result, and then we're just going to pass that string actually in the result. So we can now test this. Actually, we've got the context here on the left hand side. Let's just do a little test. So if I can move down here, we should hopefully see a list of our hashtags in a sorted order. There we go. So you can see here that we've got all of our hashtags here sorted, and of course that's now available to us as the result. So we can now return that back from our success action block within inside Fastgen. So let's go and do that now. Let's just hit the save. So what I'm just going to simply do now is just grab hold of this one. I'm just going to duplicate this one here and just click away, and I'm just going to move that just down here into this one here. In fact, we've got one down here. We don't need that. Let's just delete that one down there. We don't need that anymore. Here's return success here. Let's just bring this up here to the screen. So what we can do is we can just now delete this particular output here. Just do that. Hit insert a new variable here. If I just scroll down here, and so this is our sorted hashtags. This is our custom codes. We now want to just click on that one. So here it is, step sorted hashtags outputs, and then we should then just be able to say result like that, and then hit save. So let's now deploy this now. Hit deploy to live. So let's go back over to FlutterFlow and let's try this now in test mode. Okay, so let's choose the social media hashtags option. Let's just right click in and paste in here. Let's just generate the content. Okay, so it looks like we've got another problem. Okay, so we don't seem to be getting the output that we actually need. So what is going on? Let's go back over to Fastgen. Let's have a look at the debug and see if we can work out what's going on. So go to the logs. Let's look at the last response here. Let's have a look here. See what we got. So we've got, yep, so there is the action. We know that we got that coming in. That's good. And you can see here, this is the result that we're actually seeing in FlutterFlow, which is certainly not ideal. Looking at that, I think because this is a code step, it looks like I haven't actually put .data in there actually, which is what we need to do. So that could be the problem. Let's go back over to the API. Let's go to the ChatGPT functions here. Let's load that up. And let's move over to the return success. And I just need to go down here and I think I just need to say, yeah, I do, just data.result. If I just hit save, if you can recall that we've on this actual section here on the content improver, you can see how to use data.result there as well when it comes from the custom code block. So I think we're good. Let's hit deploy to live. Let's go back over to test mode. Let's just hit the generate button again. And there we go. We've got now hashtags which are now in alphabetical order. So there you go. You can see now the usefulness here of actually doing some of that work actually within inside Fastgen itself. And just incidentally, if you're looking at Fastgen as a platform here, and one really powerful thing about Fastgen when it comes to the actual custom code, and that's, you may have spotted this at the bottom here. If I just configure the code here, you can actually use additional npm packages. So you can actually use external libraries to actually use within inside this platform as well. So for example, it could be that it could be a screen scraping library or something like that you would like to use within inside this platform. You can bring in those npm packages and you can then utilize those within inside the code editor as well. So yeah, hopefully that is going to be of use to you. So there you go. Hopefully you found that really, really useful in invoking ChatGPT as an action from Fastgen. Now, of course, you can use FlutterFlow to call out to the platform API as well. But it's really great with inside the Fastgen platform because, of course, if you want to kind of do any kind of manipulation or some additional work on responses you get back from ChatGPT before you send it back to FlutterFlow, then certainly you can do that with inside this platform as well. And hopefully you'll get a glimpse in this video of actually how powerful the tool is now with using kind of code within inside the platform as well. So I'm really excited about the Fastgen platform. It's got a great future. There's going to be so much more to cover on my channel in the future. So hopefully you found that really useful. And please do like the video. Please do subscribe as well. If you love FlutterFlow, if you love no code in general, and you love Fastgen as well, then I'd be glad to have you part of the community. So until the next video, I'll see you soon.